Chapter 23, Episode 10. Yes, cocaine has side effects. First of all, it's bloody expensive. It can give you a headache, make you an asshole. It can even give you a heart attack. So one needs to be careful. It shouldn't be taken every day. An FDA recommended dose does not exceed 2.5 grams per week. FDA Fund Drug Advisory. Better to smoke pot. Now oxycodone, with its various brand names, that turned out to be really fucking dangerous. It had fucked up many. Mr. Morgan liked to mix just a little in with his cocaine for his own mix. He sold the two separately. He made most of his money on cocaine, but the big money was in drugs you could make in a lab. It was easier to have a lab in an apartment in New York than it was to import 100 kilos of cocaine every month. If something fucked up, you had 100 irritated clients, and irritated cocaine clients can be a real pain in the ass. He could have more clients, but he refused, not just for security reasons. The cops were easy enough to circumvent. He had the best lawyer in the city. It was just too much responsibility. If Mr. Morgan didn't love it so much and despise oxycodone so much, he'd give up the cocaine trade. But hell, the American people love their opiates and amphetamines. If Jesus didn't help the pain, Mr. Morgan or any over-the-counter or prescription painkiller would do it. It was a business question. Mr. Morgan had 6 labs in New York. It was enough. He had to be careful not to cut into the business of the legal drug pushers. They'd have you killed faster than a pissed off drug lord from Colombia. Not by much, mind you. Lords of any order were not to be fucked with. Best to assassinate them if you suspected you could get on their shit list. Mr. Morgan had no trouble with the people he did business with in Colombia. It was the drug lord that suggested the blockchain contract. It was even legally binding in a very illegal way. They agreed on who paid what percentage of losses if a shipment was lost or seized. They both knew where the product was until Mr. Morgan's people had the product, tested it, confirmed it. Mr. Morgan rated the service, always top marks, and paid in something he still didn't really understand. But he did understand many years of having no problems. He had even been invited to one of the manufacturing facilities, had seen the farms in Peru, even met a few of the families that made their meager livings picking leaves in Bolivia. Mr. Morgan was sure cocaine would be right behind cannabis for legalization. When that happened, Mr. Morgan would insist on fair trade. At least the idea seemed right. Mr. Morgan pulled his Lamborghini Urus into his reserved parking spot at his restaurant. He loved his restaurant. The best waiters and waitresses actually paid him to work for him. Compared to the tips he made, it was nothing. He could have asked for 10 times as much and got it, but he preferred a happy staff. Happy staff was more likely to jump his bones. But that wasn't the real reason. Happy workers were good workers. He smiled at his most recent super secret fling. She knew he had 3 children with another waitress. It would stay discreet. He was a fun lover. She really liked his free cocaine that appeared on his desk at cash-out time. How was lunch, Nancy? Good. Can you keep a secret? I'd love to. She let him go in ahead of her. He always made his rounds of the kitchen to make sure everything was in order. The helpers were chopping and cleaning. The cooks were frying, or whatever they called it. And it was all a little too much as far as he could figure. But that's what the rich fancy folk wanted. And they even wanted the menu in French, like being in Paris. After his kitchen tour, he walked past the bar, smiled at the bartenders, and went into his office. A most luxurious office, with leather chairs and sofa and newest iMac that he thought made his desk look like it was used for serious calculations of business. He sat in his beautiful office chair and started cutting 4 lines of coke. He loved the ritual of chopping it up very fine. He loved the scent of it. He loved how he could taste it before he even bent his head toward it. He also loved how he didn't mind waiting a few minutes when it was all prepared. Just look and anticipate. He wiped the edge of the platinum credit card with his finger and rubbed his finger on his upper gums. Mr. Morgan watched the door. It made him horny just thinking about Nancy being on her way any second.